You know what I could really go for right now? Literally anything that comes in a McDonald's carton, wrapper, or bag. Or a McDonald's cup. Yes, any of those items should do it.
We've got your cravings covered. Now stop in for the flaky Filet-O-Fish, the crispy snack wrap, or large fries for just $2.99. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 4, and got a special guest today. One of the most humble coaches you ever meet, and he is by far one of the realest of the real. What you see is what you get. He's just probably, in my 30 years of doing it, one of the most genuine people I've ever met. Glad to call him friend, Coach Kevin Smith from Perry High School. Thanks for coming on with us.
Coach, I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate the kind words, and thanks for having me.
Well, Coach, I start you off like I do everybody else. I know you're not a Georgia guy. Where did you grow up at?
Yeah, I grew up in Lagrange, Georgia, small town back then, mill town. It ain't grown too much, but it has grown. Came up through Lagrange City Schools, and back then it was two. You had Troup County schools and you had Lagrange City schools. They later merged after I finished school or whatever. But I went to Lagrange High School. Grew up a Granger. My uncle and my dad and my cousin always took me to the games as a little boy, and to Lagrange High School, and saw a bunch of good football players, and probably decided then, but didn't realize it till later that, hey, I love football, and, I'm going to be a head football coach. And dadgummit, when I realized it, it all came true. And, but I'm from LaGrange, Georgia. I graduated from there in 1988. Went to LaGrange College my first year. Had signed to play college football at Marion Military Institute, a little junior college down in South Alabama, and got over there, and going from a big high school program to a small, junior college or program, that wasn't quite the same. So came back, went to LaGrange College my first year. Moved back in with the parents, and then, a couple of my high school buddies wanted to go to Jacksonville State over in Alabama. And so I went to Jacksonville State, went over there, was going to walk on to play football, but decided just to be a student, and graduated from there in spring of 94 with an education degree. And then you graduate and you're like, uh-oh, what do I do now? And I was very fortunate. Yeah, I was very fortunate. My high school football coaches, one of them Larry Prather was my offensive line coach when I was in 9th and 10th grade year, I think even my junior year. And he was the reason why that I wanted to be coach. And but anyway, we kept our relationship going. And then another coach I got close to, Coach Rob Ridings, was at Lagrange. He was the defensive coordinator. But when I graduated, I'm looking for a job, and I called those two up, and man, they got me on it. Griffin High School at the time back then was a big rivals. We were all in the region together, and Coach Lloyd Bohannon was the head coach at the time, and he was the head coach when I was in high school, and we played him. And but he offered me my first job just because he knew Coach Prather, and then Coach Ridings took a job in Griffin, so they hooked up, and that's how I got my first job. And
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I spent my first 2 years in Griffin, Georgia, and man, I thought, man, this is great. This is exactly what I signed up to be. And Coach Bohannon retired, and they hired coach that came in, and he's a good friend of mine now. But at the time of being a young coach, I didn't understand. He come in, he's hiring coaches to fill spots, and a lot of them young coaches like me. And I'm like, well, when am I going to get hired? I'm here busting my tail doing everything, and and so went through spring practice and all this kind of stuff, and really liked it. I really liked the kids, and couple of coaches that I worked with, Tom Hall and Tommy Gilstrap. They had took a job down at Northside High School. Coach Conrad Nix had hired them, and they had sort of taken me under their wing at Griffin, and they says, hey, Coach, you need to come down here with us. So next thing I know, I'm meeting with Coach Nix, and they hire me. Coach Nix hires me, and 18 years later, or 29 years later, I'm still in the same county, and I've had a lot of success at coaching football. I've been blessed to work under a lot of great leaders, and that's sort of my path to being a head coach.
Well, who was your head coach in high school? I know Coach Prather was your position coach. Who was your actual head coach at Lagrange then?
Coach Gary Guthrie. Coach Gary Guthrie, great head coach. We had a great program. He ended up winning. We were either semifinals or quarterfinals, or when I was in high school, and then couldn't quite break through and win the state. And then a few years after I graduated, he won the state championship there. And then they opened that new school in Rome. They had East Rome, West Rome, and it's Rome High School. And he was the first coach of Rome High School when he left Lagrange High School. And but he was a major impact of my, why I wanted to be coach too. The way he did things, and he was had a tremendous impact on me as well.
So you played for a legend. Your first coaching job, you go work for a legend, and then you go work for another legend. So you started off just right.
I was very blessed, and I tell people all the time, even when I was playing Little League football all the way up through high school, there's been one out of all my years of playing football or being associated with football. There was 1 year that I was part of a team that had a losing record. I was doing one of my practicums in college to become a teacher and a coach in a little small school over in Alabama, and Coach Prather was good friends with the head coach, and he was looking for some college kids to come over and help. And I went over there and did a good job for him. We did everything with what we had. We just didn't have a lot to work with. And, we went 1-9. I learned a lot. But that was only in my 31 years of coaching, and probably played 15 years. Well, 10, 12 years or whatever, coming up to get to high school, I've been a part of one team that had a losing record as far as football was concerned. So I've been very blessed to have great mentors, great leaders, and be a part of a lot of success.
There was a pile of y'all at Jacksonville State that were there at the same time that had come back and been really successful head coaches in the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
And there might have been right after you, but like Stephen Holmes, I know he's well after you, but.
You know what I could really go for right now? Literally anything that comes in a McDonald's carton, wrapper, or bag. Or a McDonald's cup. Yes, any of those items should do it.
We've got your cravings covered. Now stop in for the flaky filet of fish, the crispy snack wrap, or large fries for just $2.99. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
There's a group of guys that went to Jacksonville State and then got into coaching, and I mean, there's a big group from Jacksonville State that have come back to Georgia to coach that have been, it's insane.
Yeah, being a football guy, even though I didn't play at Jack State, you sort of migrate to the football guys, and just hanging out and being with those guys. One name that comes to that I remembered that had success, and he might have stayed in Alabama. I think he did. Was Ray Crump. He was offensive lineman at Jack State, I believe, or defensive lineman. He was one lineman. We got close, and there was a couple other guys that went on to be good head coaches during my tenure there. And Jack State, it was it's sort of the shadow between, when you live in the state of Alabama, you either an Auburn fan or you're an Alabama fan. Then you got all the other schools that, it's okay to be one of them, but when it comes to them two big schools, hey, you either one or the other. There ain't no, So
and most people
football is important.
Most people that grow up in Lagrange end up being Alabama or Auburn fans too, because
absolutely, because it's right there. Right there together,
Not too many Georgia guys in Lagrange.
No, I tell you, I went to my first college football game at Auburn, because it was, we say you get there in 0 minutes because they're an hour behind. It takes an hour to get there. So we leave at 3 and we get there at 3, and Coach Guthrie and Coach Prather, they'd load us up and take us over there to a football. And that's the first time I ever got to see a major college football game. And so, Auburn being right there in the back door, I grew up a Georgia Bulldog fan, and it's just been very, very blessed to have the relationships and the camaraderie with, coaches that, like, for instance, Kirby Smart. When I was a young coach coaching for Coach Nix at Northside High School, Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, they were GAs at Valdosta State, and they come up and sign some of my guys, some of our guys out of Northside. That was way back in the mid '90s, and now, Kirby's the head coach at, and Will works up there at University of Georgia. And, we got a kid, Kirby will call me on phone, Kevin, what do you think about this guy? It's sort of cool to, now look where Kirby was and look where he's at now. And I was just a little defensive line coach. And now I went for that to having some success at being a head coach. So, the just watching people just grow in their profession. And still remember who you are, and we'll call Coach, hey, man, I want to call check on this kid, and you just don't, you meet a lot of people in this profession. It's like a fraternity, and it's, you still have the bad cop, good cop. You got good coaches and bad coaches, but I'm associated with a lot of good coaches, and but like I said, football and the relationships that I've been able to create, and some of the things that I've been able to accomplish is it's been a fun journey.
I cannot imagine what it was like working with young Coach Ridings and Coach Strap. That had to be fun.
Oh yeah, buddy. They rode me. I was there in college. If we were in college coaches, I was their GA. You know, I was their big boy, and I was wanting to learn it. I was wanting to suck up. I was wanting to. I'd do anything they tell me to do. You know, and they rode me. But you know what? I learned a lot from them.
Well, you piled up and went to Northside with them and got to work with Coach Nix. Now, how awesome was that?
Man, that was awesome. Coach Nix, this little story there. So I spent my first 2 years at Griffin, and then I moved to Northside Warren Robins with Coach Nix. And during the transition from Griffin High School to Northside, I go back home. I hadn't really been back home since college. You know, I went to college for 4 or 5 years, and then I come out of college. I went to Griffin. So then I hadn't really got to come home and spend some time home. So I come home, spend some time with my dad, and second day that I'm home before I transitioned to take the job at Northside down in Warren Robins, my dad passed away.
Oh no!
And that was, my dad was my hero, and he'd been a big part of my life. He never missed a football game. Never. It was then when I started coaching, he come and supported me, and so I say all that to say that Coach Nick sort of took me. He sort of filled that void. You know, here I am, 24-year-old coach, and my dad was a big part of my life, and now I don't have him. And Coach Nick sort of took me in under his wing, and really molded me. I really learned a lot. I've learned a lot from a lot of people. But when I had gotten to Northside under Coach Nix, they hadn't beaten Warren Robins in like 10 or 12 years. And my first year there, Coach Nix had been back. This was his second stint. Coach Nick's been back already 2 years. So this is when he hired us, it was our first year, but it was his third, and he was feeling a lot of heat because, Northside hadn't beat Warren Robins in forever. And we were able to beat them that year. And so we built that program for where they hadn't beaten Warren Robins in several years. Then we finally accomplished that hill, then winning the region championship, then getting to the quarterfinals, then getting to the finals, and then finally knocking the door down and went back-to-back region state champions, winning 30 games in a row. And so helped building that program from no respect to a state contender, and we had at one time under Coach Nix's leadership, we had won 10 or more games, like 15 years in a row, and won a couple of state championships, was runner up a couple of times. And then Coach Kinsler took over as head coach when Coach Nix retired, and we ended up winning 17. I was part of 17 straight years of winning 10 or more ball games. You can, and Coach Nix, he had the formula, and that's the formula that I've taken and put my touch on, and that's the formula that we have at Perry High School. And you can look at the success that we've had at Perry High School from 3 or 4 head coaches in 4 or 5 years to winning 1 or 2 games a year for 4 or 5 years to winning the state championship in 7 seasons. Hadn't won the region championship when we run that first region back in 2020. They hadn't won a region championship since 1959. And to see, to see to putting that plan into place, and it takes time to change the culture of a program that's never won, but I tell you, it was learned a lot from Coach Nix, and like I said, my high school coaches, Coach Strap, and, Coach Bohannon, those guys. And that's helped me be the coach that I am today.
Well, and that Northside staff, y'all had some dudes on that staff too. I mean,
we did, Coach. We did. And the thing about it was, we stayed together for so long. One, but we were scared to tell Coach Nix we was wanting to move up or go somewhere else. I'll never forget one story. Rutland High School had opened up, and Coach Bob Davis.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
At Warren Robins, he was the first head coach at Rutland High School, and he called me up and said, "Hey, Coach, man, I want you to go be my DC." And so I met with him, and I was going to get paid more because we had won some regions. You get paid based on what you won, And so I gutted up enough courage to go in there and talk to Coach Nix about it. And he looked at me and he said, "You ain't going nowhere." I said, "Yes, sir." So, and Coach Davis did a good job starting that program. But, we hadn't quite got to the fruit at Northside yet. We had gotten close to winning a state championship. We were runner-ups and all that, but we hadn't quite got to the fruit. And then I'm so glad that I decided to stay, because then we win a couple of state championships. And man, but I had to have somebody, some guidance there. And like I said, Coach Nix, when he took me in, when I moved down there, and he took me in, I mean, on his staff, I didn't know what he was teaching me, but man, when I'm sitting on it today, I don't know that I don't know that I could have coached a team to a state championship without him instilling the things he did in me and watching him, how he built that program and kept that program going. Complacency is something that you fight once you win a bunch of games. And Coach Nix, he had a way of, he wouldn't let nobody get complacent, buddy. He know how to punch your buttons. And, so he did, just very thankful. I was very thankful for Bob Davis giving me that opportunity. And he understood, because that next year we had some little movement at Perry High School, and I was able to move up a little bit, and I wasn't one of those coaches where I was ready to go be a DC or a head coach, but I wanted to move up, and but I also like winning, and I like winning. I hate losing more than I like winning. Mm-hmm. And we had such a good camaraderie of staff. Coach Mark Stewart, Coach Jerry Allen, Coach Reggie Thorpe, Coach, Chad Alligood came, Coach Ryan Crawford, Coach Kevin Kinsler, Coach Ricky Smith, and we had a little bit of movement during that time, but not a lot, and we got real close. And the core group of us, we stayed together, and I know I'm missing somebody, but we had and so that's sort of how I molded my staff. The staff that I have now, there's a couple of jobs opened up in the county, and I'm just getting through doing my end of the year, closing the year out, interviewing all my coaches, and I don't feel like I'm gonna lose anybody. Nobody wants to leave, so that that lets me know we got good culture in the coach's office, but anyway, I know I'm all over the place a little bit. Chris sort of yanked me back online.
Oh no, you're fine, and I was gonna just point out to people my 2 years at Northside were way after y'all did all of that, laid the groundwork, but just for people that don't know, the Northside Warner Robins game's real. The Northside Warner Robins week is something to behold. And I'm sure there's some other places in the state that think they have a little rivalry and, that it's a, Valdosta Lowndes or whatever. And I'm sure it is. I'm not taking anything away from it. But because you were there for the formative years, Coach, there ain't nothing like Demon Week. Let's get a demon. There's nothing like it.
No, and I'll tell you this, Coach, that game took a lot of years off of my life. That stress of that game. And the good thing about it, though, there's a lot of memories as far as the week, the preparation. There was no motivating kids that week. It was blood. There was focus. There was no lateness. Everything was on point because they want. You had bragging rights for a year. But the respect that the coaching staffs had for each other. Our staff wanted to beat them as bad, every year, and they wanted to beat us. But at the end of the game, it wasn't no coming across the field and mad and, just barely shaking hands and, people storming the field. And, the guys, we lined up at the 50-yard line. We came across the field and we shook hands, and the coaches shook hands. We had a lot of respect for each other, and away from that game, we were, coaches that, had a lot of respect, that, we go to coaches clinics, or we go to the GACA and we play golf together, had a lot of respect for each other, and the reason why I say that is, you watched college football a couple of weeks ago, and you got Michigan that beats Ohio State, and they disrespect Ohio State by taking a flag out there and sticking it in their field. Why you got to disrespect? Why can't when the game's over, hey, you beat us, we just shake hands. Hey, we're gonna get y'all next year. Why you gotta go start doing it? And then it happened at the Florida State game, and then Texas A&M and Texas, and but Coach Sharp, he stopped his guys. They said, we're gonna win with class, and we're not gonna disrespect any, and that's the way it should be. And getting back to the Northside Warner Robins game, that was the way it was. We were gonna respect each other, and I think that has lost people in today's society. People don't know how to win the right way, and they don't know how to lose the right way. They want to disrespect the team if they win. If they lose, they want to blame each other, throw helmets. They want to blame coaches. There's a right way to win and a wrong way to win. There's a right way to lose and a wrong way to lose. And I know back then the respect out of that game, our kids on both sides wanted to beat the brakes off each other. But after the game, we were shaking hands. We wasn't ready. They wasn't ready to fight after the game.
Yeah. I've tried to explain to people. I'm like, you can't wear red if you're a Northside person. You can't have a red car. And they're like, you're lying. I'm like, no, I'm serious. And I tell the story about when Sam Saeed won Teacher of the Year for the county, and they gave him a red car. And Coach Nix told him, you better tell him to give you another one.
And, talking about red now, we didn't wear red, period. Even in our daily lives, we didn't wear red. We wore school color. We wore blue. You didn't wear red. And when we had Robinson wear blue.
Right, exactly. And then when we had the get-togethers after the games, coaches' wives, they weren't allowed to bring red. You couldn't have red Solo cups. If you see blue ones, buy them because they're hard to find. But you couldn't even drink out of red. And people are like, "You're lying." I'm like, "No, dude. I'm telling you, it's the closest to Auburn, Alabama that I can think of." And Mr. Dyson would still come and get on the radio, and I mean on the intercom, and he'd whisper, and every time somebody got off the phone, they would say, "Let's get a demon." I mean, it was awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, awesome just to be a part of. I mean, just to sit there and watch it. I couldn't imagine what it was like for y'all that actually, when everything was on and popping back then.
Yeah, when we were number one ranked team in the state and they were number two, or vice versa, I mean, they would be 10,000 people. You know, that gate would be a six-figure gate. You know, which in today's time, even when they play, it doesn't have that because there's other schools in the county now. But the gate, and they didn't stop selling tickets. You know, all you could see in the stadium was the football field. All the grass on the sidelines, all the fence, and everybody. There was people standing everywhere. You know, and the cool one.
Hey, it's Bubba Wallace from 2311 Racing. You know what feels like forever? Sitting on a plane waiting for takeoff. Good thing I've got Chumba Casino. With daily boost and social casino games on tap, this is the kind of fun that makes time fly. Why not turbocharge your downtime? Play now at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
One of the cool things about that game is we would get there. Our time, we'd always leave Northside High School at 5:50, and we'd get to the stadium at 5:55, and we had to 6:10 or 6:15 to walk the field. And when we got there at 6:50 or 5:50, the stands were, except for the reserve seat tickets, the stands were packed. You came out to walk the field, and people start, and then usually when you come out there, there ain't hardly nobody there.
Yeah.
And but at the game, they got there early. As soon as the gates open, people want to get the best seat they could get, and that game means a lot to both of those high schools. And one of the things that was real is people grow up to be Northside Eagles. People grow up to be Warner Robins Demons, and then we were coaching third and fourth and fifth generation guys. Their dads play for their granddad. Now as old as I am now, I've got players that play for me that sons and grandsons are playing at Northside. You grew up to be a Northside Eagle. They wasn't nothing else. But you still, it might not be as prevalent now because the county's done gotten so big, and we got different schools, and you got the housing. You know how it is. People want to be where it's new, and new houses are going. But there's still a lot of people that live in those zones that, their kids going to Northside or their kids going to Warner Robins High School, because that's how much it means to them, the tradition.
And I say that to segue into this, and you'll attest to this, I think. I don't think this will offend you. But for people that don't know about Houston County, for years, there's always been Perry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like the Harlem of Columbia County if you're near Augusta, and I can't think of any other places that are like this. But Perry's its own entity. It is literally like the stepchild of Houston County.
Absolutely.
You had Northside and you had Warner Robins, and Perry, you're your own town.
Yep.
You're your own little. Y'all just sit over there and color, and y'all did good in basketball. That's cute. And then you get to go over there and put that blueprint and your spin on it into there, because you know how good and how thirsty and how much that community would go crazy getting behind you over there of the growth that's in Perry now.
Yeah.
And that's got to be pretty cool too, because you remember what it was like when, there was a time and place that somebody was said, Coach Smith, we want you to be the head coach of Perry. Nope.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm good. Coach Nick said I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah. And Coach Nick's, one quick story, and then I want to tell you how I got to Perry, and then how we had success, how I believe we had success. But Coach Nick's, I was married and divorced and had a small child and didn't have any family around. So Miss Patsy and some of the coaches' wives, they helped me with my oldest daughter now when I didn't have anybody. And so, I've been single, been divorced now for a few years. And, I started dating one of the counselors. We had a new counselor that came in, Dr. Stanley, God rest her soul. She was our API, and she had hooked me and my wife now, Monica, up. And so, we've been dating. I was going to make sure I got it right this time. I was going to make her go through a whole football season before I want to make sure she knew what it took to be a football coach's wife. So we dated for a year and then a year and a half. And then Coach Smith said, Coach Smith, it's about time for you to get married, ain't it? I said, well, yeah, Coach, I just want to make sure she understands how to be a football coach's wife, and so time passes, I propose, and we got to set the date to get married. And so, in our program and I'm my program today, we work during the summers, and we play football from August to December. And then, then from June to August, we work. He said, now, Coach, GHSA, they give us a dead week. When I went to him, telling him when I was getting married and all this kind of stuff, and we was trying to set a date. And he said, well, when you think about it, well, we're going to get married this summer, Coach. He said, well, GHSA has that dead week. So that'd be a good week for you to get married and go your honeymoon. And then you can be back to work on that Monday. You have a whole week off. And that's what happened. Me and my wife, we got married. We flew out to Vegas and we got married. We flew down to Florida, went on a cruise, and we was gone for, we worked out then Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So I left Thursday after practice. So we had Friday to that Monday. To get married and have honeymoon. And that's what we did. And so, so I tell my young coaches now, if they're not married now, you got, let me help plan when you're going to get married, because that's what Coach Dix.
That's right. That's exactly right. Oh man, that's awesome. So then, so talk about how you ended up going to Perry.
All right. So, I told you, I figured out when I was growing up, I wanted to be a head coach, and then I got into it. And so, man, I'm getting, Coach Nixon's retired. Coach Skemsler, he's the head coach at Northside. He ain't going anywhere for a while, and I'm getting the itch because, I'm getting 23 years into it, 24 years into it. So I decided Coach Von Laster, he hires me out at Houston High. And, only reason why I did that was for a chance to move up some more. And so I went out there. And he hired me, and I go out there, and I'm working just as hard, as I did at Northside. I'm all in. You don't get just part of me. When I tell you, when you hire me, you get all of me. And so I'm putting it all in out there, And so year goes by, we had some success. Next year goes by, and then the Perry job comes open, and I put in for it, and I didn't get it. And so I went back to HOCO, and I worked even harder. I didn't pout around why I didn't get this job. I'm just going to coast through until I get my chance. I went back and I worked even harder. And I had met our principal now and really good friend of mine, Dale Martin. He was an assistant principal at the time at Houston High. And I didn't know him until I went to work out there. And I'm having morning duty, and I'm always on morning duty. And then he sees me going around checking behind, and he sees me apply for that job and not get it. And well, at the end of that year, he gets the principal's job at Perry High School, and I'm like, he come, and before he left, he come by and said, Coach, he said, if I ever get a chance to hire you one day, I am. He said, you're everything that I've been looking for in an athletic director and a football coach, if I ever get the chance to hire somebody. And he said, I've interviewed you for 3 years. I know what I'm going to get. And so I didn't think nothing else about it. I go to work, he goes down there, and then he has an opening, and I applied for it. I didn't call him. He didn't call me. I applied for it. I went interviewed just like everybody else. And then he called me up and he hired me. You know, I was one of 3 finalists, and he told me all of that, what I just said, when he hired me. He said, Coach, I'm so excited to have you. I knew what I was getting because I interviewed you for 3 years, you know, and that's what I tell everybody. Every day is a job interview, you know. And so anyway, I get hired at Perry High School, and then the big question is, you know, I've been an assistant coach for 23 years. Why did it take you so long to?
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Become a head coach, and I told him, I said, well, I've been training for 23 years to be a head coach. I want to make sure I know how to do it. You know?
Yeah, it ain't easy.
It ain't easy. And when I get in there, I didn't know if I had enough training yet. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And but then you go into a program that's had 3 or 4 head coaches over the previous 4 or 5 years and ain't won but a handful of games. And I thought, man, this would be the perfect job, because if I go in there and can't get it done, well, ain't nobody been able to get it done, you know. If I go in there and win a little bit, man, they going to think I hung the moon. And I said, you know what, I'm going to hire some good coaches. I know they got good players down there. We're going to go down there and we're going to win a bunch of games, you know. And the first year we go 5-5, and they hadn't won 5 games in 4 years. And buddy, they thought we hung the moon, you know. And I'm like, well, that was a good first year. I said, but you know, the first 18 years of my, or not the second 16 years of my career, I've been a part of a team that's won 10 or more games in a row. And so winning 5 games is way below the norm for me. And I said, and I told the staff after we had a good year, but guys, hey, this ain't the norm around, this ain't the standard around here. And with the bars going up, you know, so the next year we go 6-5, make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. You know, we had a better year, you know. And then you know, everybody's, you know, and happy and all. And I'm like, no, this ain't, you know, this ain't the norm. You know, so then we go into the next year. Now I've got a quarterback that's a 3-year starter for me. Okay. And we starting to, this is going to be the best team that I've had since I've been the head coach, talent wise, everything. And we start the season off like 1-3 or 1-4. I can't even remember. 1-3, I think it was. And I'm like, man, you know, what in the world is going on? And my wife had bought me this book, You Went in the Locker Room First, by John Gordon and Mike Smith. And Mike Smith at the time was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. And if you'll remember, the Falcons were in turmoil because of the Michael Vick dog thing, and then Petrino coming in and leaving them high dry. So Falcons was just in a mess. And so Coach Smith had took the Falcons from that to 10 yards from going to the Super Bowl. You know, 10 yards. They get a first down in that game, an NFC championship, they go to the Super Bowl. Well, after that, the next year, they got everybody back, coaches, all players and everything. And they barely went 500. And then the next year, they had pretty much the same team back, and they lost even more. And so Coach Smith talked about how he went in, got everybody on the same page, changed the culture, and, you know, checked the temperature, making sure, you know, everybody was on the same page. And he went from that to, well, we got the same team back, same coaches. You know, the complacency was the downfall. You know, it was the downfall of Falcons, and eventually led to his firing. But he got the Falcons back on the map. And as I read through that book, there was a lot of values in that book that what I stand for as a coach and as a person. And the more and more I read that book, You Went in the Locker Room First, I said, man, I've been doing this my whole life. But I hadn't been the head coach. So, you know what we did? we took that winning in the locker room book. It had an action plan, and our football team, we did that action plan for you winning in the locker room. We went from 1-3. Okay, we just went into region play. We won. We won our first region game, won our second region game, won our third region game, won our fourth region game. Then all of a sudden, we're playing in the region championship for the first time, the chance to win it for the first time since 1959. Okay, they had played for it one other time, I think, in 1980, and had lost it. And we got a chance. We're playing for the region championship because we started winning in the locker room, getting the class on time, throwing the trash in the trash can, being on the field on time. Then we started getting the class on time. We started doing things right in the school building, and we started winning. We didn't win the region championship that year. We lost the region championship by a very good West Lawrence team. But we hosted a playoff, the first time we hosted a playoff game in a long time. We won the first playoff game, made it to the second round. So here we done got better now, so we got this thing rolling. We played for the region championship. We started 1-3. We weren't winning in the locker room. We had plenty of talent. We had plenty of good coaches, but we weren't winning because we weren't taking care of each other. We weren't putting the team first. It was all about me. It was all individual. And we started putting the team first. We started winning in that locker room, and we finished that year great. So here we are going into the next year now, and we got the quarterbacks back for his fourth year, and we tearing it up, and we win the region championship for the first time since 1959. We get to the third round. We playing Marist in the third round at home. They ain't never hosted a quarterfinal game in Perry High School history, and we lost that game. But when we took the field, we thought we had a chance to win. And then so what happens the next year? COVID hits, and so I'm trying to, I've done gained the trust of the community. I done gained the trust of the parents, done gained the trust of the players. So this pandemic hits, and I tell my parents, I'm going to treat your child like he's mine. I wouldn't treat your child any different than I treat mine. And so here we are. They let us come back now to school, but they won't let us come at one time. We have to come in groups, so that divides us. So I'm thinking, what can I do to make sure my parents know that our kids are going to be safe? I had them come in and spray. I had them come in and disinfect every day. I had this 6-inch PVC pipe. I mean, when we were in those groups, I'd be walking by and make sure if they wasn't doing something that they were 6 feet apart. I had a hand sanitizer in my back pocket. Every time they got through doing a drill, I was making them put sanitizer. I was doing everything I could for those kids, for those parents to know I was doing to make sure their kid was safe with me up there. So what did that do? That took the focus off of winning in the locker room. Now we're getting divided. We're having to come in groups, and then there's a presidential election, and there's some social injustice, So now my locker room was fine. We're winning in it. Now it's all divided again, and we start the season off real slow, and so we lose the first game we should have won. We lose the second game we should have won. Then we had a bye week. No, let me take that back. We didn't have a bye week. Then the third game, we're 0-2 now. We're going into the third game. I was like, what in the world is going on? And we play a game against Harris County, and somebody on our team tested positive. So when you test positive and you can't figure out who it is, they got to quarantine the whole team for 2 weeks. So we had to quarantine the whole team for 2 weeks. Okay. And so, man, I sit down at my computer at home. I'm a member of John Gordon's mentorship coaching program. Wrote Winning in the Locker Room. And this book pops up called The Power of a Positive Team. And my wife was standing there, and I said, hey, baby, you ordered me that other book. How about ordering me this book right here? She said, okay. So I just keep going on about my business. A few minutes later, my wife's tapping me on the shoulder. Said, you talking about this book right here? I said, yeah, babe, where'd you get that book at? Well, she had gotten to go to a conference before COVID shut down and hear John Gordon speak. And she had bought that book and had John Gordon sign that book and give it to me. Okay. So here we are. We're all quarantined. So we done got used to Zooming, the whole team, all 100 of us. So, what we're fixing to do? We're fixing to do the action plan for Power of a Positive Team. We shifted our focus away from all the stuff that we couldn't control, the social injustice, the presidential election, the being divided in groups. And we came back and we won the region championship for the second time in a row. And I made my point then. I said, I will never get away from our culture again. And I said, if I got to cancel a football practice or I got to cancel a weight room session, we're going to win in the locker room every week. And so every Wednesday in our program, you ask any of our guys on Wednesday, I don't care if it's state championship week. I don't care if it's opening week of the school. On Wednesdays, we're going to win in the locker room. Well, what's winning in the locker room, Coach? That's character day. We sit down and we learn things. We learn how to be a good person. We do different character lessons, and and I was having to do all of that. And then it grown to where we had a minister at a local church that moved in and came by and met with me, and I told him what I was doing. He wanted to be a part of it, so he took that part off of me. But every Wednesday we was winning in the locker room, and a lot of times, Chris, coaches at the beginning of the year, they want something like a book or something to get them started, and then we ain't got time for that no more. We got to get back to, we got to do this, and that. And I said I never would get away from that again. And so when we won the state championship last year, here we are in week 14. Guess what we doing on Wednesdays?
Winning in the locker room.
Yeah, and hey, everybody's thinking, well, Coach, we ain't got enough time to do this. That's one of the most important things we do. And then the next week, week 15, we playing in the state championship. So we played on I think a Thursday or I can't remember what night, Wednesday night or Tuesday night. It might have been Tuesday night. I can't remember. Anyway, the week of the state championship game, guess what we were doing on that Wednesday? We were winning in the locker room. Guess what we did today? Today's Wednesday, right? We've been out of the playoffs this year for 2 years, right? Or 2 weeks. We're winning in the locker room. Even with the seniors that's going to fishing to graduate, we're winning in the locker room. So I say all of that to say this. You got to have good players. You got to have good coaches. And you got to have good administration in the school building. Okay? And then probably the final piece of that, the fourth piece to that, is you better have good culture. Your kids better know how to do things right. You see a lot of teams that's got a lot of talent and they 5-5. And then, that's what we were. We were 5-5, 6-5. Started slow. What we doing right? I know we wasn't winning a lot. We didn't have good culture. We had to change our culture. We had to do it for each other, not for me. We had to learn how to put the team stats in front of my stats. And I got a good story for that one. Daquan Wright. Daquan Wright signed with Virginia Tech when he finished his playing career at Perry High School under me. And that was my first Power 5 signee as a head coach. Okay. And he goes to Virginia Tech, and of course he's at Ole Miss now, was a big part of their team this year at Ole Miss. But Daquan, I knew, was a very talented young man as a 9th and 10th grader, but he was very selfish. He'd come in, Coach, why ain't I getting the ball? I ain't touching the ball enough, blah, blah, this, that, and the other. And our team was struggling and he was struggling. And then, but once we started winning in the locker room, by the time he graduated, and he was part of 3 region championships in a row. We hadn't won one since 1959. Now we done won 3 region championships in a row, and he was a big part of that. By his senior year, he comes to he's coming in the coach's office and said, Coach, we ain't getting little Johnny the ball enough. We ain't getting little Richard the ball enough. And then at the end of the night, he would have more catches than all of them, or more yards than all of them. He had learned that if he would serve his teammate, that he would get a lot of that fruit. But if he was just worried about him getting the fruit, he wasn't going to get a lot of fruit, and our team wasn't going to get a lot of fruit. So he goes from that to now he's at Ole Miss, okay, and he's already on the draft board. He's got 1 more year at Ole Miss, and he's going to get drafted in an NFL. And that's the power of culture. When you teach your kids that the team comes first, but you as a leader have to walk the walk. And I don't know how I missed this, Chris, but the coffee bean.
Yeah.
I got caught up on the coffee bean. So before we won that state championship, the year before we won that is when we got hooked up. Is when we brought the coffee bean into our culture. That was the next step. What's the coffee bean, Coach? It's a good analogy. Okay, it's a really good analogy. All right. Before I tell you the analogy, I want you to understand why it's so powerful. Okay. The reason why the analogy is so powerful is because it saved the guy's life. Okay. So John Gordon meets this guy named Damon West. Okay. And Damon West he's a big time high school quarterback coming out of Texas. He goes to North Texas. He's the starting quarterback. He gets hurt. His career comes to an end. He starts drinking, gets into drugs. He was raised by a good mom and daddy that was in the church. So when he gets through playing football, he graduates and he's off at college, and he's doing really good in college. Got a good job, and he complains in class to one of his buddies that he's tired all the time. He said, "Hey man, meet me down in the parking deck after class. I got something that'll help you get over being tired." And so he did, and he went down there and he got hooked on methamphetamines. And him and a group of about 12 people started robbing people blind. And eventually get caught. And he goes into jail. And so he goes to trial. And it takes them 2 weeks to go over all the evidence that they did. They robbed so many people. They couldn't catch them. They finally caught them. And so the trial comes to an end, and the jury goes back to Damon's fate. Damon ain't never been in trouble, really, and so he's thinking, he'd get some probation or something, maybe a couple of years or whatever. And the judge comes back out, and this is true. Damon told me this because they took me out while the jury went to deliberate. Sometimes it takes them an hour, 4 or 5 hours. Jury deliberation. They take Damon back to a holding cell so the jury can deliberate. And usually on a case like a 2-week case, it takes them 4 or 5 hours, 2 or 3 hours to decide his fate. Well, he ain't got back. They take him back while the jury delivered. He ain't been back there 10 minutes, and the bailiff's done come back there and got him to bring him back out. And he mentioned to the bailiff, he said, "Well, man, that didn't take long." He said, "No, usually when it don't take that long, you fix and get hung, And so he goes back out, and the jury, the judge gets the verdict from the jury, and he said, "Damon West, I hereby sentence you to 65 years in a state penitentiary, life sentence."
Good Lord.
And
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
And Damon's mom and dad sitting on the front row, and dad, and they just gasping for air. Here they've done everything to raise this guy, their child, like home and have everything, and he's done this. So his mom and dad, his dad was so furious with him that he couldn't talk to him. So the mama, you hear me, Chris?
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I got
Okay,
you.
I'm sorry. My truck. Okay, my truck come off. Damon's mom told him, they let him speak to him before they took him off. Said, Damon, you come back the man we raised, or you don't come back at all. When you go in that prison, you did what they said in that court of law. You did all those things. You owe the state of Texas a debt. You owe your father and I a debt too. We didn't raise you that way. You come back the man we raised, or you don't ever come back. And this sort of was a downfall for a low moment for Damon. So they ship him off, and his mama had told him, you better not join no gangs, you better not get no tattoos, you better come back the man we raised, or you don't come back at all. So he ships off. So now he's trying to figure out how he's going to make it in a state penitentiary, a maximum security prison. How's he going to make it? And so he gets in there, and this old African-American man named Mr. Jackson befriends him. And he's a lifelong criminal. Damon said one of the nicest guys, most positive guys you'll ever meet in your life, but just in and out of prison. And so he befriends Damon, and Damon's saying, look, now what am I going to have to do to come back? My mom told me I better not join no gangs. I better not get no tattoos. I better come back the man they raised, or I can't come back at all. He said, Damon, you got to imagine prison like a pot of boiling water. Okay. And in that pot of boiling water, you got three things. You got a carrot, you got an egg, and you got a coffee bean. Okay. When you got to visualize that pot of boiling water is like the prison. Okay. When you put a carrot into that pot of boiling water, when it goes into that pot of boiling water, what is it? It's firm, right? All right. So when you put it in that pot of boiling water, what does the water do to that carrot? He said, well, it makes it soft. He said, yeah, that's right. So you going in, you're going to come back the way your mom and dad raised you. But when you get in there, they're going to break you, when you turn into the carrot, you join in the gang, you getting tattoos. So you can't be the carrot, Damon. Okay. All right. Well, then there's the egg, right? When you put an egg inside the pot of boiling water, on the inside, it's real soft. And it's got a harder outer shell, But when you put that egg inside that pot of boiling water, what happens? The pressure of that water changes the inside of that egg to hard. Okay? That symbolizes hate. You're institutionalized. You'll be in and out of prison the rest of your life. So you don't want to be the egg. Okay? So you got to be the coffee bean. So what happens when you take that coffee bean and you put it into that pot of boiling water? Well, it turns to coffee. Yeah, that coffee bean, the smallest of those three items, changes the whole environment around it and changes it to coffee. That water didn't change that coffee bean. That coffee bean changed that water to coffee. See, when you go in that prison, you gotta. It's gonna be a very negative environment, and you're gonna have to surround yourself with positivity, and you're gonna have to do things the right way. And Damon, he took heed to that, so he gets in there, and his things are going pretty good for him, and then he's in there, and he done turned into that egg, he's done turned into that carrot, and he goes down to the chaplain. And he goes into the chaplain, this old 84-year-old chaplain named Miss Dawsett. And he starts complaining about God and saying that, I can't believe God would put anybody in this kind of living environment, just blaming God and doing all of this. And Miss Dawsett looked at him and said, well, Damon, there's a lot of people in the Bible that blame God. If you're going to pray, pray. If you're going to worry, worry. You can't do both. Okay. So, Damon he's thinking about killing himself. So that's why he went down there to talk to the chaplain one time. He's going to go back to his cell and kill himself. But after the lady told him that, he started, man, that makes a lot of sense, because if I pray about something and I worry about it, I don't trust God, So I'm going to pray about it, and then I'm just going to try to control the things that I can control. Well, things are looking good for Damon now. So the parole board comes in. It's been usually when you get a life sentence, you're going to serve at least 15 before you even come up for parole. So about 7, 8 years into it, the parole board comes in and meets with Damon. And Damon said, they asked Damon, said, Damon, we have never seen anybody come in a maximum security prison and have such a positive impact and change some of the people and the things in this prison. Oh, what did you do? Well, I was just a coffee bean. And he told him about the coffee bean. And so, well, why should we let you out? Or why should we let you out? Yeah. And he said, well, if you leave me in here, I'm going to continue to change this environment that I'm in. But if you let me go out into the real world, I can share my story. And they paroled Damon. So Damon only served about 7, 8 years. So now Damon's trying to figure out, well, how am I going to share my story? I want to share it at the college football level, because that's what I played. So now he's trying to figure out who's going to let a convicted felon come talk to their football team. So he's trying to figure out how he's going to get on stage. So he goes to he gets a media pass, and he goes to a coaching clinic in Texas. And this is where all the head coaches go annually for the Bear Bryant Awards. All the head coaches, Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, all the big time coaches, or Steve Spurrier, all the big time coaches are at this convention. So he said, well, maybe I can talk to some of them and they'll let me come talk to his team. So he starts approaching these coaches and wanting them to let him come speak to their team. And some of them take his card. Some of them see him come and they turn around and go the other way. And, man, I said, well, how am I going to get in? So there's this one coach that's left, and he's over there filling his cup up full of water. And Damon goes over there and he starts telling me a story. And the coach, he listens. And so Damon's trying to cram his whole story into like 3 minutes, because this guy's listening to him. And when he got through, the guy said, yeah, I'll let you come speak to my football team. You know who that was? That was Dabo Swinney, University of Clemson. Okay. So Dabo lets Damon come share the coffee bean story with University of Clemson's football team. That's the first place he shared it. And John Gordon, who is this big-time motivational speaker, wrote in all these books, was a good friend. It's Clemson's positive coach. John Gordon does a lot of stuff with that football program. And so Dabo calls John Gordon up and said, John, I just heard one of the most powerful stories that I've ever heard. You need to get with this guy, and y'all need to write a book. Okay. And so sure enough, they hooked Damon up with John Gordon, and then Dabo calls Nick Saban at University of Alabama. Damon goes shares his story at Alabama, and then he's at Tennessee. Then he's all over. And to this day, he's sharing it with companies, football teams, school systems, everything. Everybody's wanting him to come speak to them, because what the coffee bean analogy saved his life. And here's the life lessons of the coffee bean culture. Okay. One, body language. You got to have good body language. Okay. Two, okay, you got to be a servant leader. You got to know how to serve other people. All right. You gotta have humility. Is another characteristic, because there's a right way to win, a wrong way to win, a right way to lose, and a wrong way to lose. And all right, so then the next step is you got to control the controllables. What you think, what you say, what you feel, and most importantly, what you do. So I'm preaching all these values. I better walk the walk, or I don't have any validity. I don't. Nobody's going to believe who I am if I'm preaching this and then I go out in the real world and I'm not living it. All right. Then there's you got to exercise in 3 different areas. You got to exercise physically, you got to exercise mentally, and you got to exercise spiritually. And then your past is your lesson, the present is your gift, and the future is your motivation. And those are the principles of the coffee bean that Damon learned, that saved his life, or he would never got out of prison. He said, Kevin, I seen so many things. I seen men get raped. I've seen men get killed. I seen men get stabbed to death. I said, there's so much bad stuff in prison. He said, and that's how the coffee bean culture arises. So we adopted the coffee bean culture, at Perry High School. Servant leadership. We got to learn to put others before ourselves. We got to learn when we win, there's a right way to win and a wrong way. We got to control the controllables. We can't worry about things that we can't control. That water's gonna get hot. You're gonna have a carrot moment. You're gonna have an egg moment. But you gotta get back to grips with yourself, and don't let your anger control you, but you control your anger. And so that's basically where coffee. And we instilled those values in our players. And you can hear our players, hey, man, be a coffee bean, man. Be a coffee bean. If one of them's up in the building and they ain't doing quite the right thing, you can hear one of them, hey, man, be a coffee bean. Be a coffee bean. And until this day, I really believe that the coffee bean culture, along with good players, good coaches, good administration, and a team-first attitude, has helped us build this program from a joke to a state contender every year. We're very fortunate to win another region championship this year. We came up short in the playoffs. Doing things the right way does not guarantee that you're going to win every game. It doesn't guarantee you're going to win a championship. But what it does guarantee is you got a chance to win one every year if you're doing things the right way. And that is how Perry High School, under my leadership, has went from nothing to where we are now.
Man, that's awesome.
And I know I sort of struggle a little bit because it's been a while since I've told that story. I think I got out of chronological a little bit, but that is it. That's in a pecking order. That is it. And I'm just very thankful that. And then one of the things I failed to say, Coach Sweeney's won some national championships, 2 national championships. When he got hired at Clemson, I don't know if you know this, Coach. They fired Terry Bow, or one of the Coach Bowdens, and they appointed Coach Sweeney. He was on staff, and so he interviews for the Clemson job and for the real head coach. And the board came to him and said, "Look, we're gonna hire you. We want you to build a program like Alabama has." And Coach Sweeney looked at him and said, "Well, I sort of take offense to that. I'm gonna build a program that's better than Alabama." And Clemson goes on to win 2 national championships and beats Alabama twice for them, 2 times. Clemson is Coach Sweeney is big into building young men, if you build enough good young men, you're going to win all the football games you want. And the Coffee Bean and the John Gordon training and studying Coach Sweeney and on how he's built his program at Clemson. They 3 or 4 years after all these, they've won 2 national championships in the last, 6 years. But now Clemson is a joke, everybody, because he don't dabble in the transfer portal, and they lost 2 games this year, and then they win the ACC and they're back in the college playoffs, and they're the second institution behind Alabama that has the most college playoff appearances, and he's still doing things the right way. Don't guarantee you're going to win it every year or win another championship, but it gives you a chance every year. So, I wanted to tie all that in there, and I tell you, look what Kirby Smart's done at Georgia, and Damon West has been up there, and Coach Smart does a lot of character training, a lot of winning in the locker room stuff. And I'm just very thankful that I was able to, be able to put it all together. It's still sort of surreal, Coach. Man, did we really win the state championship? All I could hear when I took the job was, "Oh, you'll never win at Perry High School. You won't be down there 3 years." All of this kind of stuff. From that to winning a state championship and contending for one each year. Because of doing things the right way, teaching, building young men, and as a leader, walking the walk and being a good role model.
And that's what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I know I jumped around a little bit on you, but I'm very passionate about how we built the program, because I didn't build it by myself. I had good assistant coaches. I had good administration. I got good players that poured their heart and soul into the program. And I was just very gracious and humbled to be able to be the guy that was able to lead it. But it wouldn't have been done if it wouldn't have been for my assistant coaches, my administration, and my players. And I'm very thankful for that. And, sort of like I tell the players, it's not about the name on the back of the jersey. It's about the name on the front of the jersey. If you care more about that name on the front of the jersey, good things are going to happen.
And great things continue to happen. And it's been fun to watch. And I enjoy our time we get to play together on the golf course, and just how everybody rallies around and supports. I know this year everybody was wanting to know, what y'all were doing, and that used to not be a thing. It was always, what were the other 2 schools, big schools, doing in town, and now you're coaching one of the big schools in town, and that's just awesome to see. And I sure do appreciate you, and appreciate you coming on and sharing your message and your vision and your story, how you got from Lagrange, Georgia, to where you are now with us. It's really been awesome, Coach. I sure do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having us on. I appreciate the fellowship, the friendship, and I appreciate you doing this so other young people can grow, or maybe one person hears what I said tonight and changes the way they see life, changing that environment around them to a positive thing. It's well worth it, the time. I really appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Coach.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
If you work in university maintenance, Granger considers you an MVP. Because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.